Rodriguez has given us once again another Spy Kids film titled Spy Kids Armageddon. In a way, this is a reboot, a sequel to the previous ones, and all sorts of things like that. I have a full review up on my channel, but this video is about talking about the entire franchise, ranking every Spy Kids film from worst to best. There's 5 films to talk about, and I'm excited. Make sure to leave your thoughts down below, hit that like and subscribe button for more, and without further ado, let's get into this ranking. Coming out my number 5 is the 2011 Spy Kids For All the Time in the World. This takes place 8 years after 3D, and well, it's not great. It's very forgettable. I just rewatched it, and I don't even remember it. I passed out in the middle of it, and I've now technically seen this film 1.5 times. And I remember when it was coming out, I was pretty excited for it. I was on a Joel McHale kick because of Community, because of Soup, I was a pretty big fan of. And, well, when you look at this all, yeah, Jessica Alba's awesome, but the rest of it's not. The kids in here are not an issue. I don't like to shit on children performances because, you know, kids are only as great as your script can be and as well as your direction. And I think Robert Rodriguez honestly just failed on a directing scale and as well as a script scale. This just seemed like, hey, Spy Kids was a popular thing at one point in time. Let's try and bring it back. And it honestly doesn't seem like it wanted to be whatsoever. I genuinely think the only few good aspects of this movie is actually the tiebacks to the original franchise, as well as Ricky Gervais as the dog. Think about everything else in this film just honestly just falters, is boring, and honestly not memorable at all. Coming down on my number 4 is Spy Kids Armageddon. I was expecting this film to be honestly just as bad as the previous one I just talked about. New cast, really doesn't tie into anything at all. Didn't even watch a trailer for this, just expected kind of not some great stuff. But I knew I was going to be doing this ranking, so before I even got the screener, I went ahead and watched the first 4 films again. And I have to say, when you do watch at least the first 3 and then go into this, it does feel like a nice little reboot. Imagine this being kind of the Force Awakens of some sense for the Spy Kids franchise. I can't even believe I'm saying that, but in a way it is, because this is the original Spy Kids film, like literally the story almost top to bottom. Besides a children's cartoon show, it's a video game. So in a way, it's Spy Kids 1 meets Spy Kids 3D. There's a lot of nuances there, a lot of tie-ins, a lot of Easter eggs to the previous stuff, and it doesn't tie in really whatsoever at all. You know, getting into spoilers, none of the previous characters show up in here, and I didn't even expect them to. It's a brand new cast, and I think that is actually one of the shining aspects of this, is starting brand new, making it its own story, making it for that next generation, because I do think that when kids watch this, they will have a blast. If I had a child of my own, that kid, this would probably be like one of their new favorite films. Just as when I'd watched the first Spy Kids film when I was younger, I thought this film is awesome. It's one of my favorites. I think this film loses a couple different things. I think it loses that Latin culture that the first 2 films primarily really had. And honestly, for me, the parents are some of my favorite aspects of the first 2 films. I wish the parents here were a little bit better. I do like Gina Rodriguez. I do like Zachary Levi. I'm pretty biased to him. If you haven't known, Chuck is one of my favorite shows of all time. If you've never watched that show, it's on HBO Max. You should watch it now. But I liked them in here. I just, again, wish there was a little bit more development, a little bit more showing them together. Same thing with the kids. I wish the kids were partnered with the parents a little bit more, so when everything does go awry and it's really up to the kids, that's when you're going to really fall in love with them. But I will say here, these kids are awesome. I thought both of them were very entertaining. I thought they had great chemistry, and I thought they worked. Now, does some things of this film not work because of just bringing in the video games and the AR and certain things like that that make it very modern day telling? Yes. You go back and watch the original Spy Kids films, it's almost the same exact stuff. There's a lot of things that don't hold up. A lot of these films are very much time capsules of their time, and this one will be a time capsule of today's time. Are the visual effects great? No, but they're better than what has been previously seen in the Spy Kid films and anything else from Robert Rodriguez. Is the story amazing? No, it's pretty predictable. And Billy Magnuson as the villain, awesome, fun, but it's exactly what you would expect from him. Honestly, for me, the biggest surprise of this film and why I actually was so entertained was each act honestly got better and better than the last. Starts off pretty cringy, gets a little bit better in the second act, and by the third act, I was actually fully on board with it. I actually would go as far as say the action set piece in the third act almost made me put this at my number 3 because of how entertaining it was, how fun it was. So shout out to that. Now we get into my number 3, which at this point in time, Spy Kids 3D, when I saw it as a kid, this was like the cinematic event for me. There was a couple cinematic events when I was a kid that I had to see in theaters. This was one of them alongside Shark Boy and Lava Girl. It was a pretty cinematic day when my dad brought home the 3D DVD of Spy Kids 3D, just to say. But it was those films, Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, alongside that as well, Toy Story 3, Toy Story 2, all those. But the Yu-Gi-Oh movie and Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. I mean, those were like a lot of my childhood, a lot of my pinnacles of it all. And I feel like Spy Kids 3D, it does not hold up like at all to today. The visual effects are trash, garbage. There's people on YouTube doing better visual effects than this. And this is a time capsule movie. It's 3D effects. It was a movie made primarily for those. You could tell Robert Rodriguez was trying to have fun with it. The story is the shortest out of all the Spy Kids films, and you can feel it. It's very rushed in its mannerisms. There's a lot of things that I wish they would have focused on more. I'm happy the grandpa had a lot more to do in this with Junie Cortez. I like that Junie was very much the main central focus of this entire story, especially coming off the second film where he was burned. And I love all those elements. I think it's really much a solid follow-up. It's just all the set pieces make it look... I mean, this is hard to even compare because I think the original Tron looks better than a lot of this film, but it kind of just brought memories back to that. And it's fun for what it is, seeing all the different video game elements, seeing how it kind of correlates to now. I'm a huge video game fan, so there's a lot of fun moments to that. It's just rushed. And as a conclusion, you would expect a little bit more heartfeltness to it all because the first two films had so much of that. The parents are really much swiped to the side. His sister very much is swiped to the side, barely in the film. It's like a whole brand new cast in a sense, and really much only everyone comes together in the very end of the day to stop Sylvester Stallone, who I do think is actually really fun in this movie. But we needed more of him. The film's just too short. It's 3D effects at the time I remember having fun with, but Spy Kids 3D, it's not great, but it's fun. That's where we get down to my number 2, which is the original Spy Kids film. And going back to rewatch this, it started off and I'm like, this movie's like, well, it's a time capsule. This movie's actually pretty great. And I would actually go as far as say this is probably one of Robert Rodriguez's best movies. And for me, you know, it gets a little bit goofy towards the end. And again, some of the visual effects get a little bit silly. But the first Spy Kids film, I think for what it is a perfect little children's film. That if you grew up with it, you're going to find essences and nuances to have fun with. You're going to kind of cringe and be like, really, I like this stuff. And it is very kid humor. In every sort of light it is. But that's kind of the fun aspect to it all. Robert Rodriguez really puts a big smile on your face with this movie. The brother-sister dynamic in here is actually one of my favorite brother-sister dynamics that I've ever seen in a movie, and primarily just one that really puts, again, a big smile on your face. Antonio Banderas and Carla Guillen, I always mispronounce her name, I apologize for that, is spectacular in here. They're actually the one aspect I wish we had more of in here. And Floop and the thumbs and all the different weird creatures that come from this cartoon character, I like that it kind of goes to say, like, this cartoon is kind of brainwash children and trying to take over the world. And there's things like that that really work. And I loved all of that. And again, maybe I have some nostalgic glasses while going back to rewatch this one, but I just smile in delight from this movie. And I think if you don't have a heart. Take that as what you will. Now, my number 1 is Spy Kids 2, The Island of Lost Dreams. Now, I know a lot of people probably have this one flopped with the first film, but this was a perfect thing to the first one. It doubles down and goes bigger onto the spy thematics. I like that a majority of the film, they can't even use the spy gadgets. They actually have to use their own intuition and everything of that nature. They're smart, and it shows how good these siblings are as one another. And I love that. I love the monsters. Again, the visual effects do not hold up. I will never defend that. I think they look like shit now, but they are so much fun. And as a kid, I thought they were great. And everything of that nature. The creature designs, the monster designs, Steve Buscemi is fantastic in here. I just love all of his dialogue, specifically the one line that he says about God.
Think God stays in heaven because he too lives in fear of what he's created?
This is just everything that I could have wanted and more. Deception, lies, loyalty, being burned by the OSS, being brought back, sneaking your way into a mission. It has all the thematics that you would expect from an entire spy franchise. Anything that you've ever read or seen in a spy franchise, you see in this movie. And it brings again and doubles down everything that we got from the first film, but only elevates it a little bit more, elevates more of the family nuance. And again, while I was a little bit disappointed Antonio Banderas once again and Carla were not in this film a lot, it's so much fun. And also adding, I know they added the thumbs and things like that. It's that creative and imaginative vision that they brought into these first two films that really work. That kind of, while yes, it's superficial and super fake, you can kind of believe that like a spy would go on to that adventure. And I found that this mysterious island that, again, time forgot, really adds a lot to this moment. The Island of Lost Dreams very much has all those lost ideas and lost concepts, and it really ties into the thematics of the entire story and what they were trying to do. Again, a lot of stuff doesn't hold up in here. A lot of the action set piece, a lot of the visual effects. But as a time capsule of me going back, this movie was so much fun, and I remembered watching it why this one was always my favorite Spy Kids film ever. And why the third one was such a high concept for me and so excited as a kid, because the second one was the peak of this franchise for me, and that is why it's at my number one. So much again, guys, for watching this. Make sure to hit that like, subscribe, and comment down below your guys' thoughts. I cannot wait to hear your guys' Spy Kids franchise ranking. Did you grow up on this franchise? Did you not? Leave your thoughts down there, and of course, until next time, stay classy.